Hey everyone, today I'm going to read a few chapters from Steven Pressfield's book, The War of Art. My friend Dan gave me this a few years ago, and I know I've read it at least twice. I think I might have read it a third time. But I liked it a lot. There's a lot of good stuff to get out of this. Not all of it is applicable, but that's everything. This is broken into three parts. Basically, it's talking about how our internal resistance gets in the way of, trying to progress on anything that you care about. The second is how to fight against those feelings and win against those feelings, and then also to start looking at yourself as a professional. Not like professional in the business sense necessarily, but mostly just taking yourself seriously and making what you're doing a consistent part of your life if it's something that you do care that much about. And then the third part addresses where our inner creative muse comes from. Like I said, not all of this will apply to any one person. The last third, it's a little woo-woo for my taste, but what he says himself is, even if that's not your thing, you could look at it from like an abstract or a metaphorical perspective, and the message is pretty much the same thing. So I will read a chapter of each part. All the chapters in this are fairly short. The first one will be the longest, but they're all pretty brief. And just so for my own mental health, this is a mental health thing, by the way, because we have the Three of Diamonds here, and I'm reading 3 chapters. So I will put footage of my dogs on top of me reading this, so you don't have to look at me intellectually pondering words on a page. Oh, this is none of that. Resistance and fundamentalism. The artist and the fundamentalist both confront the same issue, the mystery of their existence as individuals. Each asks the same question: who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of my life? At more primitive stages of evolution, humanity didn't have to deal with such questions. In the states of savagery, of barbarism, in nomadic culture, medieval society, in the tribe and the clan, one's position was fixed by the commandments of the community. It was only with the advent of modernity, starting with the ancient Greeks, with the birth of freedom and of the individual, that such matters ascended to the fore. These are not easy questions. Who am I? Why am I here? They're not easy because the human being isn't wired to function as an individual. We're wired tribally, to act as part of a group. Our psyches are programmed by millions of years of hunter-gatherer evolution. We know what the clan is, we know how to fit into the band and the tribe. What we don't know is how to be alone. We don't know how to be free individuals. The artist and the fundamentalist arise from societies at differing stages of development. The artist is the advanced model. His culture possesses affluence, stability, and enough excess of resource to permit the luxury of self-examination. The artist is grounded in freedom. He is not afraid of it. He is lucky. He was born in the right place. He has a core of self-confidence, of hope for the future. He believes in progress and evolution. His faith is that humankind is advancing, however haltingly and imperfectly, toward a better world. The fundamentalist entertains no such notion. In his view, humanity has fallen from a higher state. The truth is not out there awaiting revelation. It has already been revealed. The word of God has been spoken and recorded by his prophet, be he Jesus, Muhammad, or Karl Marx. Fundamentalism is the philosophy of the powerless, the conquered, the displaced, and the dispossessed. Its spawning ground is the wreckage of political and military defeat. As Hebrew fundamentalism arose during the Babylonian captivity, as white Christian fundamentalism appeared in the American South during Reconstruction, as the notion of the master race evolved in Germany following World War I. In such desperate times, the vanquished race would perish without a doctrine that restored hope and pride. Islamic fundamentalism ascends from the same landscape of despair and possesses the same tremendous and potent appeal. What exactly is this despair? It is the despair of freedom. The dislocation and emasculation experienced by the individual cut free from the familiar and comforting structures of the tribe and the clan, the village and the family. It is the state of modern life. The fundamentalist, or more accurately, the beleaguered individual who comes to embrace fundamentalism, cannot stand freedom. He cannot find his way into the future, so he retreats to the past. He returns in imagination to the glory days of his race and seeks to reconstitute both them and himself in their purer, more virtuous light. He gets back to basics, to fundamentals. Fundamentalism and art are mutually exclusive. There is no such thing as fundamentalist art. This does not mean that the fundamentalist is not creative. Rather, his creativity is inverted. He creates destruction. Even the structures he builds, his schools and networks of organization, are dedicated to annihilation of his enemies and of himself. But the fundamentalist reserves his greatest creativity for the fashioning of Satan, the image of his foe, in opposition to which he defines and gives meaning to his own life. Like the artist, the fundamentalist experiences resistance. He experiences it as temptation to sin. Resistance to the fundamentalist is the call of the evil one, seeking to seduce him from virtue. The fundamentalist is consumed with Satan, whom he loves as he loves death. Is it coincidence that the suicide bombers of the World Trade Center frequented strip clubs during their training, or that they conceived of their reward as a squadron of virgin brides and the license to ravish them in the flesh pots of heaven? The fundamentalist hates and fears women because he sees them as vessels of Satan, temptresses like Delilah who seduced Samson from his power. To combat the call of sin, i.e. resistance, the fundamentalist plunges either into action or into the study of sacred texts. He loses himself in these, much as the artist does in the process of creation. The difference is that while the one looks forward, hoping to create a better world, the other looks backward, seeking to return to a purer world from which he and all have fallen. The humanist believes that humankind, as individuals, is called upon to co-create the world with God. This is why he values human life so highly. In his view, things do progress. Life does evolve. Each individual has value, at least potentially, in advancing this cause. The fundamentalist cannot conceive of this. In his society, dissent is not just crime, but apostasy. It is heresy, transgression against God himself. When fundamentalism wins, the world enters a dark age. Yet still, I can't condemn one who is drawn to this philosophy. I consider my own inner journey, the advantages I've had of education, affluence, family support, health, and the blind good luck to be born American. And still, I have learned to exist as an autonomous individual, if indeed I have, only by a whisker, and at a cost I would hate to have to reckon up. It may be that the human race is not ready for freedom. The air of liberty may be too rarefied for us to breathe. Certainly, I wouldn't be writing this book on this subject if living with freedom were easy. The paradox seems to be, as Socrates demonstrated long ago, that the truly free individual is free only to the extent of his own self-mastery, while those who will not govern themselves are condemned to find masters to govern over them. A professional does not take failure or success personally. When people say an artist has a thick skin, what they mean is not that the person is dense or numb, but that he has seated his professional consciousness in a place other than his personal ego. It takes tremendous strength of character to do this because our deepest instincts run counter to it. Evolution has programmed us to feel rejection in our guts. This is how the tribe enforced obedience, by wielding the threat of expulsion. Fear of rejection isn't just psychological, it's biological. It's in our cells. Resistance knows this and uses it against us. It uses fear of rejection to paralyze us and prevent us, if not from doing our work, then from exposing it to public evaluation. I had a dear friend who had labored for years on an excellent and deeply personal novel. It was done. He had it in its mailing box, but he couldn't make himself send it off. Fear of rejection unmanned him. The professional cannot take rejection personally because to do so reinforces resistance. Editors are not the enemy. Critics are not the enemy. Resistance is the enemy. The battle is inside our own heads. We cannot let external criticism, even if it's true, fortify our internal foe. That foe is strong enough already. A professional schools herself to stand apart from her performance, even as she gives herself to it heart and soul. The Bhagavad Gita tells us we have a right only to our labor, not to the fruits of our labor. All the warrior can give is his life. All the athlete can do is leave everything on the field. The professional loves her work. She is invested in it wholeheartedly, but she does not forget that the work is not her. Her artistic self contains many works and many performances. Already, the next is percolating inside her. The next will be better, and the one after that better still. The professional self-validates. She is tough-minded. In the face of indifference or adulation, she assesses her stuff coldly and objectively. Where it fell short, she'll improve it. Where it triumphed, she'll make it better still. She'll work harder. She'll be back tomorrow. The professional gives an ear to criticism, seeking to learn and grow, but she never forgets that resistance is using criticism against her on a far more diabolical level. Resistance enlists critics to reinforce the fifth column of fear already at work inside the artist's head, seeking to break her will and crack her dedication. The professional does not fall for this. Her resolution before all others remains. No matter what, I will never let resistance beat me. Largo. In my 20s, I drove tractor trailers for a company called Burton Lines in Durham, North Carolina. I wasn't very good at it. My self-destruction demons had me. Only blind luck kept me from killing myself and any other poor suckers who happened to be on the highway at the same time. It was a tough period. I was broke, estranged from my wife and my family. One night, I had this dream. I was part of the crew of an aircraft carrier. Only the ship was stuck on dry land. It was still launching its jets and doing its thing, but it was marooned half a mile from the ocean. The sailors all knew how screwed up the situation was. They felt it as a keen and constant distress. The only bright spot was there was a military gunnery sergeant on board nicknamed Largo. In the dream, it seemed like the coolest name anyone could possibly have. Largo. I loved it. Largo was one of those hardcore senior non-coms like the Burt Lancaster character Warden in From Here to Eternity. The one guy on the ship who knows exactly what's going on. The tough old Sarge who makes all the decisions and actually runs the show. But where was Largo? I was standing miserably by the rail when the captain came over and started talking to me. Even he was lost. It was his ship, but he didn't know how to get it off dry land. I was nervous, finding myself in conversation with the brass and couldn't think of a thing to say. The skipper didn't seem to notice. He just turned to me casually and said, What the hell are we gonna do, Largo? I woke up electrified. I was Largo. I was the salty old gunny. The power to take charge was in my hands. All I had to do was believe it. Where did this dream come from? Plainly, its intent was benevolent. What was its source? And what does it say about the workings of the universe that such things happen at all? Again, we've all had dreams like that. Again, they're common as dirt. So is the sunrise. That doesn't make it any less a miracle. Before I got to North Carolina, I worked in the oil fields around Burris, Louisiana. I lived in a bunkhouse with a bunch of other transient geeks. One guy had picked up a paperback about meditation in a bookstore in New Orleans. He was teaching me how to do it. I used to go out to this dock after work and see if I could get into it. One night, this came. I was sitting cross-legged when an eagle came and landed on my shoulders. The eagle merged with me and took off flying so that my head became its head and my arms its wings. It felt completely authentic. I could feel the air under my wings, as solid as water feels when you row in it with an oar. It was substantial. You could push off against it. So this was how birds flew. I realized that it was impossible for a bird to fall out of the sky. All it would have to do was extend its wings. The solid air would hold it up with the same power we feel when we stick our hand out the window of a moving car. I was pretty impressed with this movie that was playing in my head, but I still had no idea what it meant. I asked the eagle, "Hey, what am I supposed to be learning from this?" A voice answered, silently. "You're supposed to learn that things that you think are nothing, as weightless as air, are actually powerful substantial forces, as real and as solid as earth." I understood. The eagle was telling me that dreams, visions, meditations such as this very one, things that I had till now disdained as fantasy and illusion, were as real and as solid as anything in my waking life. I believed the eagle. I got the message. How could I not? I had felt the solidness of the air. I knew he was telling the truth. Which brings us back to the question, where did the eagle come from? Why did he show up at just the right time to tell me just what I needed to hear? Clearly, some unseen intelligence had created him, giving him form as an eagle so that I would understand what it wanted to communicate. This intelligence was babying me along, keeping it simple, making its point in terms so clear and elementary that even someone as numb and asleep as I was could understand. Well, thanks for listening to me as I read those 3 chapters. I hope you got something out of it. I could ramble way too long about what it means to me, but I don't really want to do that because I think sometimes with things like this, when somebody words something so well, I don't want to get in the middle and start mucking things up. So tell me in the comments, does any of that speak to you? Whether it's a creative endeavor or just something in life. I hope that helps you. Quick little programming note. I'm going to be scheduling a live writing stream for next Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific. And to start doing kind of like a night owl live stream for anybody who, if you haven't watched one of those before, it's mostly just, it will be me staring at the computer and typing, but we'll take little breaks in between and chat if anybody's in the chat. But that's like that kind of mirroring really helps me to keep working. So maybe that might help you too. So keep an eye out for the little notification, and otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye.
Sid, can I have a howl?